Talk about movies with you. Talk about movies with you. We'll learn about behind the scenes and deeper meanings, 'cause this is just a film review. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Film Recommendations. I really appreciate that YouTube lifted the length restriction on videos, for one, because it means that I can actually go back to the multiple movie format that I started with. So instead of commenting on necessarily just one movie at a time and trying to discuss it in 10 minutes or less, I can really go in depth on films. The two films for this episode are not new films in any stretch of the imagination, but they are films that require a little bit of attention. So the first one that I think I'll discuss is the one that I just watched and took a look at the different features. And the first one there is Tim Burton's Corpse Bride, starring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. This is the widescreen edition, because any film purist will tell you that the widescreen edition is preferable to the full screen edition, because it does give you a better idea of everything that the filmmakers intended. This DVD, I hesitated to get either of these DVDs because they don't have running commentary from the filmmakers. And even Repo Man, which is not a new movie and is a bit of a cult movie and doesn't have any other special features on it other than the film trailer, has a running commentary. So running commentary doesn't excite a lot of people, but it excites me because I like having the insight on the story and the behind the scenes and the filmmaking process and the process for the actors. To me, it makes the film seem more well-rounded and more exciting because you get to understand the entire filmmaking process as a whole, from the logistical aspects as well as from the artistic aspects. And it's far better listening to, say, the director or the producer commenting. When I was watching the Superman movies, uh, all of them, with the director commentary. Although I don't believe I don't believe there is a director commentary for Superman Returns. But when I was watching Superman 3, there was a producer commentary from one of the Salkinds, or Salkins, however you pronounce it. And it was absolutely horrible because the guy spoke in a thick accent and was just talking about it as if the goal was just to make the movie, not to create a story that was worth watching. It wasn't about the quality, it was just about getting it done. Not as much fun when it's just about uh, getting the product out there and expecting that it'll be good or people will like it, whether it's good or not. I don't know. I think that's kind of where Tim Burton's production company deviates, as well as Peter Jackson's Wingnut Films. Um, Back to Corpse Bride. Um, the different features include all these behind-the-scenes featurettes. Inside the Two Worlds, Danny Elfman interprets the two worlds, the animator's The Breath of Life, Tim Burton Dark vs. Light, Voices from the Underworld, Making Puppets Tick, the voices behind the voice, the Corpse Bride pre-production galleries, theatrical trailer, a music-only track, and of course languages and subtitles. And I actually try to watch movies with the subtitles on in English so that I can hear every line or understand every line because sometimes you don't always hear lines that are there. A good example of this is in The Empire Strikes Back. You never hear Han say when he's returned to his prison cell after being tortured for a long period of time, you never hear him say they never even asked me any questions until the special edition was released, and even then it's just audible, barely. But the line brings such a depth to the scene and the whole point in the story of that they are simply suffering. They aren't being tortured for information about the rebellion. They're simply being tortured to bring Luke Skywalker to Cloud City. So I think that the music-only track sounds very interesting. I won't listen to that just yet because I think it would make it too much like a silent movie. And considering that the colors in the film are very monochromatic um, until they get to the world of the dead, um, I have a bit of a problem with having uh, having a film that's animated be silent, just because animated films really only took off after the era of sound, because you were able to have films that uh, that had sound, had audio tracks, and uh, you could animate things. It just doesn't quite work if you have um, title cards, although subtitles work equally as good. I'm just not certain. It's different, of course, if you're watching a movie with a commentary running. Um, Although the Star Trek movies have a text commentary from Michael Okuda, who where he talks about all kinds of trivia things, props and actors and behind the scenes stuff. And it's very cool. It's a little distracting though, but definitely good stuff for people who are into uh, the Trek stuff. Trekkies, which is their proper term. Trekkers is not a proper term, no matter what they say. I'm just rambling all over the place, aren't I? So, for those who don't know the story of the Corpse Bride, the prologue happens during the opening credits, where they talk about how uh, a bride was uh, was proposed to by this shyster type guy who skipped out on her, and in her sorrow, she went out into the woods and laid down and died from a broken heart, basically. Um, but that, she still kind of um, roams uh, roams the earthly plane or whatever, uh, waiting to waiting to be wed. So it's a very disturbing and sad and haunting kind of idea, um, and uh, at the same time, it kind of is very romantic and everything. So enter our living characters, Victor and his soon-to-be wife Victoria. Victor is the son of two nouveau riche persons who made money uh, off of their butcher shop, and which is a good solid business rather than having just old money and living on that, as the landed gentry family of Victoria. And so this brings in an interesting class dynamic, and of course, the nouveau riche try to act as if they are landed gentry, and the landed gentry uh, simply don't look at them the same. So what ends up happening uh, is Victor's character. Victor is very nervous. Victor is uh, a gentle, loving kind of soul, but he wants to not go into an arranged marriage because he doesn't want to, you know, have a cold, heartless wife or something. He wants to be happy, as do so many of us. So he meets Victoria and finds out that she is also very kind and gentle and sweet, unlike her parents, who are very cold and stern and harsh and cruel. So uh, they have a wedding rehearsal at the house of the landed gentry folk, and end up uh, having to rehearse it so many times that Victor just simply can't go on. He's too nervous. So he goes out to think, and he practices with some of the trees and stumps and sticks in the woods, and puts a ring on what he thinks is a stick sticking out of the ground, but it turns out to be a finger. It turns out to be no less the finger of the corpse of the bride uh, that has been sitting there for years. Um, the bride takes him down to the underworld, uh, where the souls of the dead and their bodies remain as long as they have sort of earthly concerns to worry about. Um, and basically before they're ready to move on. So Helena Bonham Carter plays Emily, the corpse bride, and she does a magnificent job in this. There are numerous songs and everything. I would not recommend this movie for children, but teenagers would like it, and I don't think it would be as scary for the teenagers or as upsetting. Uh, there are things like dead people's eyes popping out, and things that are kind of gross and could kind of mess with a little kid's head and give them nightmares or give them weird notions and whatnot. And you don't want that. So anyway, a whole series of of different confusions ensue, and uh, the the suitor that Emily uh, was to marry turns up and uh, and encourages, basically smooth talks his way into having the wealthy parents think that he is also wealthy, so he's from the right class, um, and since they're just about broke, that means that uh, they can be comfortable by having money come back into the family. And what ends up happening is he basically plans to take whatever he can get from uh, Victoria's family and run off with it and live comfortably on his own, and you know have his whole life to himself. He's a very selfish man, a very cruel and careless man, uh, and has no predilections whatsoever towards caring about others. So Victoria doesn't quite catch on to this until after a scene in which the dead from the underworld come back to life, and it just kind of goes on from there. But it all gets resolved in the end like a fairy tale, and Victor and Victoria are able to carry on with their lives together. So it all gets resolved in the end, but the ins and outs are things that I'm going to leave to you because I have to praise more the actual film. I think that the story writing fits together wonderfully. Apparently, this was actually a low budget film, which is hard to believe considering just how well they orchestrated it and carried it out. Um, it has a British cast of, mostly, except for Johnny Depp and um, perhaps a couple of other actors, such as some of the musicians and impressionists. But I was amazed at how well the different actors just kind of played together. It was really an all-star cast, just getting together and having fun, and doing an excellent job at uh, at making the characters into these wonderful people to populate this world and the story. They didn't have a lot of characters in the story, and I think that's part of how you can tell it's a low budget. And they didn't have a lot of sets, and the sets weren't too terribly large, but they still did a wonderful job of telling the story. Contrast that with Coraline, which I believe I already did a review of Coraline. Um, Coraline uh, was big budget, loads of special effects, and lots of originality and great ideas to bring Coraline to life. And uh, so you contrast one with the other, and Corpse Bride really stands out as its own movie, of course, but it has a lot of elements similar to what you saw in uh, in The Nightmare Before Christmas, which of course came out almost a decade, I think over a decade before, but used a lot of the same kinds of animation and only used a little bit, in this case, um, of CGI, and really only that towards the end. A lot of it was just special effects, camera angles, lighting, and by special effects I mean animation effects. Um, and it's really just brilliant to see, you know, 3D animators just do their thing. Uh, like I said, it lacks an audio commentary, and so I do think that that leaves it lacking. Now, for the King Kong 2-disc special edition, uh, I don't understand quite why they needed to have 2 discs for all of it. I mean, on the first disc, it's just the movie, and admittedly, the movie is long. It is over 2 hours, and I ended up dozing off at a couple of points for a little bit, but I kind of needed a nap. Um, but the second disc includes an introduction by Peter Jackson, some post-production diaries, Skull Island: A Natural History, and Kong's New York of 1933. Um, I will say that this movie produced one of the worst Saturday morning cartoons. I will say that this movie produced one of the worst Saturday morning cartoons ever made, which is the short-lived Fox Kids series Kong. I think it was Fox Kids. It may have been Kids WB, but either way, it's essentially the same thing. They have a short-lived series, and then it disappears. And unfortunately, uh, you know, unfortunately, Kids WB has gone with mostly adapted uh, entertainment from Japanese studios that just produce shows centered around toys and card games and things. So there's no real fun in the actual show. It's just some ongoing saga with a lot of pointless drama and no real character development. The characters are very one-dimensional. By contrast, I think that the King Kong series, which I only saw a little bit of, um, was short-lived and was just meant to kind of take off on the popularity of the King Kong film. They did similar with Godzilla. They had a short-lived Godzilla series. They did a Men in Black series, and I'm trying to think if they did any others, but uh, really you get the point. Whenever a series comes out, they usually that was immensely popular, they try and produce uh, a television series, or whenever a film comes out, they try and produce a television series kind of based on that, a cartoon show. And in the case of Men in Black, it was actually very popular, and the animation company was able to produce Jackie Chan Adventures and make a real smash out of that. I believe it was the same animation company. It gave them enough faith in original productions, is the point, that they were able to uh, start producing uh, real shows with uh, original plot ideas. And admittedly, with Jackie Chan Adventures, from one season to another, it just was an ongoing thing of they're trying to get these different magical items together and defeat these monsters. But uh, if you consider that the first series of the first plot line of Jackie Chan Adventures was really just intended to kind of be a serial adventure and then close out, and they wanted to renew it, and they said, "Well, crap, uh, we've already gotten all of the talismans and defeated the demons, so what do we do now?" Uh, they were able to come up with some pretty original stuff, I think, but at the same time, they kind of pushed it, and after a while, people were just like, "Oh, so they're on another quest." It gets tiresome after a while, you know. And just because something is popular doesn't mean you have to renew it. Just like just because something is unpopular for its time doesn't mean that you shouldn't renew it. It's it's basically about giving something a chance. They gave Jackie Chan Adventures plenty of a chance, and then when it was done, they should have just let it uh, go away and you know come up with a new series, a new show, and that has always, in my opinion, produced pretty decent results. When Babylon 5 went off the air after its run, despite being canceled numerous times, it was able to produce a couple of spin-offs, a couple of movies that were excellent. I thought that Crusade was quite good, although they went with the formulaic quest. I'm so off topic tonight. King Kong. King Kong um, has some of the best color saturation visuals that I've seen in a lot of films. I think they did a very decent job of updating the story and preserving what it was to be in the 1930s and giving the plot elements for the characters a very realistic and three-dimensional twist for their characters. Um, for instance, the heroine of the story, who falls in love with King Kong as, a friend, uh, she faces the very harsh reality of starving in New York because uh, she can't hold down a theater job. She's a performer. So someone offers her a job to work at a burlesque show, and she considers it and then turns it down because she doesn't want to degrade herself. So she is someone just trying to get by, but who ends up on hard times and can't really um, make it work because it's not working for anyone at that time, unfortunately. And similarly, Jack Black's character, Carl Denham, has a hard time producing his film because the producers keep wanting to back out because, times are tough, money is tight, and he doesn't want to uh, end up destitute. but he ends up owing a lot of people. Uh, and unfortunately, I have to say that Carl Denham's character really is the least likable, despite them casting Jack Black, who generally is a very likable actor. Kung Fu Panda, for instance. I won't go into that. But Jack Black's character is charismatic, uh, a bit of a dreamer. Uh, he tries to be very much a leader and everything, and encourage the guys to really, really do for him what even he wouldn't be willing to do for them. So, unfortunately, he has this sense of entitlement. On the other hand, what is his name? Adrian Brody. That's what I thought it was. Adrian Brody's character is um, is okay. He I won't say that he's a great actor. I think he mostly got the role based on his popularity in the film The Pianist. But I also think that he lent a certain charm to the part. But in the end, his role was basically heartthrob and you know, kind of intellectual heartthrob at that. So I don't think that the movie itself stands out. I mean, it was in the $5 bin at the store, so it's not some amazing piece of film that you can watch. This is kind of when they were first starting with the idea of films being like a ride or an attraction, where it's an experience. And this was also just after the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And I have to say that I would sit down and watch The Lord of the Rings, even though I don't especially. Well, I've never read the books because I don't find them all that interesting. And it's one case where the books really aren't much better than the movies because the movies were made to be very close to the books but a lot more interesting. And I would listen to the audio commentaries on The Lord of the Rings. By contrast, um, I would not really watch this movie a whole heck of a lot, but I wanted to get something that was kind of okay to fall asleep to and was kind of visually interesting. And I do like their adventures on Skull Island because uh, they get up to so many different kinds of things. I love, uh, how they have to run from the dinosaurs and fight off the various giant creatures when they're down in the pit and have to get out, and they're just trying to survive. And on the other hand, at the same time, I hate Jack Black's character, and I hate the fact that they have all these natives just completely feral and everything when there's this clear ancient society that thrived there at some point. And I just wish um, that they could have alluded to more of the ancient society. Um, as it is, they do discuss that a bit more in Skull Island: A Natural History, but so much of it is just BSing because even they didn't really make um, a concept for it. They just kind of went with what they thought would be kind of cool and gave the place a bit of a backstory, but not really enough of a rich, full one. So what ends up happening is um, you hear them saying, well, maybe it was like this, or maybe it was like that, as if it's a real place and they just are figuring it out historically. But in the end, it just kind of falls flat. It ends up. I remember actually watching Skull Island: A Natural History on the Sci-Fi Channel when they were promoting this. It was quite literally aired on the Sci-Fi Channel right around Thanksgiving or Christmas to promote King Kong for the Christmas season, and um, or maybe it was this summer. I can't honestly remember. It doesn't matter either way. Um, I thought that Kong's New York was interesting because it shows that they actually looked at the historical stuff and the archives from the time. And I thought that the music was really good. They chose very timely music, and I thought that it was important that they pointed out how many uh, big name performers came from vaudeville as a form of theater. And I watched the introduction with Peter Jackson, but kind of tuned out during it. And that's really where I wish that they had had a commentary running for this film because it would have meant so much from all of the production associates and the director saying, this is what we did and this is where we got this idea. Yes, it's just a remake of an old movie, but it doesn't matter. I want to know, you know, uh, are any of the production assistants, making little cameos? Um, what kind of cool little things did they do? Uh, what about the planes? Were those full planes on gimbals or in front of a blue screen? I mean, yes, it kind of stands to reason, but I want to know this. And obviously they were acting in front of blue screens a lot or green screens a lot like they were doing with Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow to create this 1930s New York. But I want to know the details, you know? Maybe it's just me, but I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I want to know about what goes into the writing process, elements that they put in that differentiate it from the original. So anyway, this has been my little rambling episode of film recommendations. Hopefully it has been enlightening for you, and hopefully you've had a lot of fun with it. If not, my apologies, and hopefully the other episodes are far more entertaining. I think that I did a very good job with the Inception one, but I like to do these in spurts sometimes. Um, you know, a few over a couple of days. So that's it for this episode. Bye bye.